Where are you, Louisiana?
No, we're in Sargent at my buddy's place. We're gonna go fish this evening and then fish again in the morning.
Nice,
I'm
nice.
at the home of the salty gringo.
I love the salty gringo. I do. All right,
I'm
so
actually
we're
it's
just,
actually a Pat's best friend in high school or something.
what's his name?
That's how Jeremy Davis.
I wonder if he
You know,
knows. What's up, Jeremy? You
he
remember
said, "What's up,
Jacob?
Jeremy?"
Remember my son Jacob? He was a class ahead of you guys.
Did you know? Did you know Jacob Lopez? Did not. He's a class ahead of Pat. Probably he says he's missing out in life because he didn't.
He is actually. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna do the intro and everything separate, so we're just gonna get right into it.
Okay, let's do it.
All right.
I don't have a bunch of background noise or anything, do I?
No, that's good.
Okay.
All right, let's get started with Caleb McCumber. Why not jump into the pool with both feet first, or maybe do a belly flop into the pool? So, as I mentioned, we know our guys. Obviously, I know Caleb and Dean and Scott very well, and a lot of our listeners know them very well as well. But a lot of our listeners all over the country, and certainly here on the Gulf Coast, know them through here. Don't really know the background, as I mentioned in the intro. And so I thought with the new year starting here and a fresh start for the Bite Me podcast as well and getting bigger and better, let's dig into these guys. Like, I'm not going to be all Barbara Walters here, Caleb, but, sort of a little bit of unless you feel like crying. If you feel like crying.
I wore my sunglasses, so I'm clear if I do.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with where you are right now and how people perceive you. And certainly it's a brand and it's fun and all that. But like if somebody, like let's say at the Feeding Frenzy, somebody was asking me, is Caleb really like that? Of course, you were standing right there, and I'm sure they got to talk to you as well. I said, well, the thing about Caleb is his brain is going in I kind of can relate. You know that about me. I'm always kind of going in different directions. But I feel like I might have a little more discipline than you do when it comes to your brain going in a million different directions. Where does that come from, man?
Man, I think the accurate way to describe it is my brain moves too fast for my own good, and my mouth outruns my brain. That's pretty. That's where we're at. It was kind of a funny deal. Mickey Eastman and James Plog were kind of betting me before they decided to come on my other program, and they both known Larry Higgins at K Wigglers for a long time. So they asked him that, and I think Larry's the simplest description is what you see is exactly what you get with him, and that comes from my dad. I come from a long line of them, and my dad and my grandfather are both really, really well liked people in South Texas. However, they probably weren't the most polite or the most educated or the most well mannered, anything like that. But if it crosses my mind, I'm gonna say it. And I don't sugarcoat a whole lot. Sometimes I try to be politically correct to not get us canceled, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is still coming out. I can't help it. I won't sleep tonight if I don't say it.
And again, that's something that I can relate to. And I've told you guys this. If there's some sort of question about something or issue, I've told my kids this forever. I've gone by it. Maybe I'm a little more. I put a little bit more of a filter on it. But I'm like, the truth is generally the best way to go. Like if you think something, say something. And you're saying that comes from dad and grandpa.
That's just the way I was raised, and that's the way I'm trying to raise my kid over here. The best way I've heard it put is tell them the truth and let them deal with it. If you don't tell them the truth, now it's your problem. You tell them the truth, let them deal with it. But I mean, I got to give you your credit too. Really before I got involved with you, I was just a guy that fished a whole lot and knew some cool people. And you really taught me to stay the course of who I am and what I want to say and how I want to be. And the people that can deal with it, they end up becoming pretty good buddies. There's no reason to try to market something you're not, because you're gonna screw around and boy, there was a term my dad used all the time that I almost didn't, but it included stepping on something. But you're gonna turn around and screw up if you're not being who you are and you have enough visibility. You're going to get caught doing it, and your brand is toast the day that happens.
Yeah, and it's not just we use the term brand a lot, and I use the term brand a lot because I think you want people to know you for that. but that should be authentically you. I love one of my favorite things. I'm sure you get this, and that's why I'm mentioning it here. Man, you're just like you are on the radio, or you're just like you are on the podcast. I'm like, that is the best compliment I can get.
You know what, though? It's great because it's gotten to the point, and again, we give you a lot of crap, but we owe you a lot of gratitude for as big as you've grown, a lot all of this. But it's gotten to the point where I can't go to Minute Maid, I can't go to Reliant, I can't go to the airport, I can't go to Bass Pro Shops without somebody recognizing me and somebody wanting to talk to me. They either recognize my voice. It's usually my voice is what people pick up on. They're like, man, that sounds like you. But I don't have to step into a character when I meet those people. Because usually not so much Bass Pro Shop, but at Minute Maid and Reliant, I'm usually drunk when you meet me. And there's no stepping into character. And I got a couple of funny little stories for you real quick. But we were in line with the rodeo. We're going to watch Cody Johnson. We're in this big old long line, and I've already had a couple. And man, I get loud and happy whenever I drink beer, and I'm raising hell and having a good time. And the line kind of does that S thing where you go back and forth across people. Well, one of the Bite Me listeners just happened to be in that line, and we passed each other. And I'm raising 7 layers of hell, just having a good time. I'm not being obnoxious. I'm just having a good time, getting a little rowdy. And the dude he walks by and he goes, "Hey man, just want you to know we love the show." And my wife looks at me and she goes, "And that's why you can't be ignorant in public anymore." I said, "No, I do it on air too. Don't worry about that, babe."
I'm ignorant on the air too.
Yesterday we were heading to Pat's place. Me and Cade went bass fishing out there, and I had a customer from England U call me, and they're having some payment issues. And I went through a big long thing with them, and they're like, "Hey man, really glad you called. It's great talking to you." And I get off the phone, I look at Cade, I said, "Man, I'm pretty good at customer service, huh?" And Cade goes, "Yeah." I go, Am I that nice in real life?" And Cade goes, "No." Like, maybe not to you, bud.
Not to you for sure. So you mentioned South Texas and your dad and grandpa. What did they do? And I know that they probably helped you, influence you into something else I'm going to ask later about the rodeo.
Well, my grandfather was a stock producer, and if y'all don't know what that is, you go watch Rodeo Houston, you go watch San Antonio. There's somebody that brought all the broncs and the bulls and the roping steers and roping calves and everything. That's what my grandfather did. My dad, naturally growing up under that, was the guy that helped him. And my dad was a bull rider and a bronc rider. Later on in life, when he was too old for that, he became a roper, and he was pretty good at that. But a lot of the character and a lot of the dry, sarcastic stuff I have, and a lot of the just completely unable to feel empathy for people is all of those, believe it or not, those broncs, those bulls you see are pretty well trained. They look wild and they're bucking and all of that. But if you notice, they stand in the chute real calm and let the cowboys get on them and everything. There's a reason for that. That's because every stock producer has a son at home that has to get on them in that chute until that bronc or that bull quits just tearing everything to pieces. And that was my dad's job and so I grew up in a pretty rough and tumble environment, rodeoing and all that. In the meantime of all of that, my great grandfather, my grandfather, and my dad generationally all took care of a big hunting ranch. It's about the ranch itself is about 2,000 acres, but we kept about 200,000 leased. And I was a hunting guide. My dad was a hunting guide. My grandfather, the grandfather before him. And so from the age of very small, whenever I was about 12 years old, I had a CJ7 Jeep. I had a dog trailer with it had 4 different compartments in it. You could put 2 to 3 dogs in each compartment. And we rolled around acreage in South Texas and quail hunted. And whenever I was about 14 years old, I may or may not have told Edwin Edwards he was the dumbest son of a bitch I'd ever met in my life.
When you're 14?
And at that time, I could have been 13. But at that time, if you don't know who he is, he was the governor of Louisiana. And then I think he bought the San Francisco 49ers. You'd probably know that better than me. And then he went to prison for racketeering and all kinds. He was a piece of shit. I didn't like him. Yeah. But there's rules that you abide by, whether you're on my boat fishing or you're on my Jeep hunting. There's rules you abide by. That's for everybody's safety. He wasn't capable of it, and I had to take charge as a kid. But I mean, I grew up guiding in that aspect. My dad's majority of the clients were senators, congressmen, stuff like that. And so I was at a very young age. I was thrown into guiding and dealing with situations, whether they be great or not so great.
Where in South Texas?
George West. Our ranch was in George West. Then we kept I mean, I went and ran bird dogs on the King Ranch down there. We had places down towards Alice. We had places out towards Freer, Three Rivers. I say we had 180,000 acres. It wasn't all contiguous. It was 5,000 here, 10,000 there, so forth and so on.
Yeah, my background is in Kennedy and Karnes City. Yeah, so
Okay.
definitely South Texas. That's where
we did a lot of dove hunting that way.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you've ridden a bull.
I have.
Really?
It was so again, my dad is a bull rider and he kind of always pushed me that way. When I was young, this is probably junior high, a little bit before. I didn't do any bronc riding. The bareback riding is, a lot of people think that bull riding is dangerous. Bull riding is dangerous, but it doesn't have anything on bareback riding. So I never did that. I didn't have any kind of saddle bronc riding background in any of my family, so I never did that. But I did ride, calves and steers and junior bulls and stuff whenever I was young, growing up. I just wasn't as good at it as I was at roping. So by the time I got to high school, all I did was rope. I didn't do any of the rough stock anymore.
And that's what you did once you entered rodeo. When did you do that?
I probably went to my first rodeo whenever I was 7 or 8 years old. The
As
TYRA,
a competitor?
Texas Youth. Yeah.
Okay.
Texas Youth Rodeo Association. Whenever I was a kid, they have like Pee Wee division, junior, senior, all that kind of stuff. I won whenever I was in 8th grade. Is the first year I won state in the calf roping. And then you go on to high school rodeo. And when you get into high school rodeo, then they'll allow you to enter the CPRA, the Cowboy Professional Rodeo Association. And so you can do both of those side by side. But, I went to youth rodeos until 7th or 8th grade. And then by my freshman year, I was entering high school rodeos. And it's called Cowboy Professional Rodeo Association. If you are in the actual business, we call them AMIs, which is short for amateurs.
Mm-hmm.
The PRCA, the Professional Rodeo Cowboy Association, that's the one that you see out in Vegas, the big yellow buck and shoots and all of that. That's what Houston, San Antonio, Fort Worth, all those are. CPRA is it's comprised of people like me at the time that were high school kids, people that can't travel as much, and then the PRCA guys usually come in and kick everybody's ass and take their money.
But you did, unless I'm wrong on this, you did do a circuit as you got older, right?
Oh yeah, no, I rodeoed until I'm 43 now, until I was probably 33, 34. Whenever I was engaged to my wife, we were still going quite a bit. And I want to say somewhere around 2008, we went to 37 rodeos over the course of about 4 months, and I won money at 35 of them.
Oh, wow.
And when I balanced the books, I can't remember if I'd lost or made $5. And said, you know what? When I was in high school, that was the goal. I was going to be a professional team roper my whole life. That's what I was going to do. I was very lucky growing up in that my father was friends with a lot of the top guys in the world. Rich Skelton, 7-time world champion, Speed Williams. I could go on names forever. Tyler Magnus. And I grew up with those guys from the time I was Cade's age until I was done rodeoing. I was around those guys. And the day I graduated high school, I went and moved in with them. And it really opened a lot of doors and did a lot of stuff. But I looked around and, man, that's in high school. I was like, if I could make enough money to enter next weekend, I'm good.
Yeah.
But turns out those are only realities to a high school
Plus,
kid.
you're driving your truck in the middle of the night. You're staying in shit ass hotels or motels.
Oh, there was no hotels.
Yeah. Or
we
staying in your truck.
So I never had the money to have the trailer with the nice living quarters, but I had friends that did. So often I would go shack up with them or something. But and back then it was 99 cents a gallon for diesel. A good horse cost, if you spent 20 grand on a horse, you were an absolute maniac. Like, I can't believe you did that. A rope cost $12. So you get the point. Today you're at 350 gallon diesel. A good horse costs 100 grand. It's a lot of, it's just unreal. People ask me if Cade's going to learn ropes. It's just not even realistic.
So you don't want him to even get into the game?
Well, he's left-handed, and that's a huge, that's very hindering for a roper. But B, it's just not realistic.
Yeah. And your dad was a sculptor.
Not on a fishing guy's pay scale. My dad was a sculptor. My dad was a Western sculptor. I know at one point they had his stuff in the Smithsonian. He was pretty stinking good with Play-Doh. And you can still buy his stuff on desertcanary.com.
There you go. desertcanary.com. And another thing that I know some people don't know about you as we kind of dig in on the captains here on the Bite Me podcast. By the way, don't forget to subscribe. I always say that at the beginning of the show, but it's worth it. These guys are fantastic, and we're trying to illuminate that a little bit. You were a good athlete, like football.
I don't know if I was a good athlete as much as I just didn't like getting hit. So I learned how to be very good at not getting hit.
Yeah.
There's a kid playing at Needville right now. He's a seventh grader with Cade. And I've grown up around, or the kid's grown up around me. I've watched him run. He's a quick little dude. But on the football field, if he runs 30 yards in one direction, he's going to run 70 yards back and forth to get there, and nobody's ever going to touch him. And I told his dad, I said, boy, that kid reminds me of me. God dang, it hurts when the little skinny guys get hit. And he looked at me, and his name's Jagger. He was a third baseman on the Little League World Series team. Mm-hmm. And his dad looked at me, and he said, only thing that kid likes to hit is baseballs.
Yeah.
I could tell.
So, where did fishing come in on all this?
So I grew up on the banks of the Nueces River. We had a bunch of stock ponds on the ranch, and they all had Florida hybrid bass in them. Grew up doing that with my dad. My dad was really into bass fishing. And then Choke Canyon is our old ranch. They eminent domained the ranch and flooded it. And so my dad knew Choke Canyon like no other fisherman. He would know where that set of stock pins were, or that old concrete water trough, where the house was, all that kind of stuff. So we were pretty good on Choke Canyon. And the saltwater fishing, I had friends that did it. We went down to Port A and Corpus quite a bit and stuff like that. I dated some girls. Their grandpas were really into it. But whenever I got really serious about it, it's kind of a funny story now, but when I really wanted to just lock in and just get serious on it was the early 2000s, and there was a group of dudes that I knew, and they are all pretty good fishermen. And my wife's, my girlfriend at the time, but her ex-boyfriend is one of them. I'm personally pretty secure in my relationship, so I I'll go fish with him. I don't care. Let's do that. But I kept trying to get invites, and they kept going like, yeah, man, we're going to go Friday. We'll call you. And they never called me. And so one day I was driving down the road, and there's a boat for sale on the side of the road, and I had enough money for it. And I got it locked in my mind that I'm going to buy my own boat. I'm going to fish myself, and I'm going to come so damn good that they're going to ask to fish with me. And I mean, it was a say you won't thing, or say I won't sort of situation.
Tell me I can't.
Yeah. And so I just, man, we fished a lot, and I was very fortunate. I've gave him credit a million times. I'll do it again. I was very fortunate that one of the first guys I met in Matagorda is a guy named Donnie Maha. He's pretty low key, but he is an absolute stud of a big trout fisherman. And Donnie took me under his wing, and Donnie was a absolute wizard with a quirky. And my learning curve in Matagorda and throwing quirkies and finding big fish was flattened, beginning with Donnie in a very big way. Well, then I kind of backed off the rodeo, and that's where I started getting into the tournament fishing and all of that. I still needed to stretch the competitive itch, but just how do I do it? And the tournament stuff is where I found that at.
I want to get back to that, because another thing about you that some people know, some people may not. Once you get something in your mind, I mean, it's not even halfway in. It's not even all way in. It's beyond anything in terms of committing, purchasing equipment, figuring it out. I know a story about you were going to be a coyote hunter.
Boy, that's a favorite of everybody's. Man, I got committed into that.
So what happened? How'd you get into this?
Well, I mean, growing up on that ranch, we hunted predators and stuff all the time. But I grew up in a very country way. I never got to have waders or bibs or nothing as a kid. You hunted in Wranglers and cowboy boots, and so our predator hunting was very
rudimentary.
Yeah, that word. It was very simple. I had like an old rabbit call that I got from my grandpa, and that's what we did. Well, whenever I discovered that there's all these other cool things, that's what gets me hooked. If I can figure out how to put technology into something, yeah, that's what gets me hooked. And boy, I got deep up into it. It turns out when you only have 100 acres to hunt it, it's a very short-lived career. but man, I was hard and heavy for about 3 months.
You were trying to market it to other ranches and stuff?
what I was trying to do was, so I moved up here, and unfortunately, and it's not a shot at the people that grew up around here, but people don't trust them. They're mostly city kids. They don't understand what's going on. They don't know how to shut the gate behind them. They don't know how to not shoot the cow. They don't know how to not shoot towards the headquarters, the house, whatever. And so what I was doing is I made a bunch of business cards, and the idea was I was going to go meet these ranchers and convince them, hey, I've grown up here on these things. I've lived a life. What I was trying to do was bring some acreage in. I was trying to get some places to hunt. Didn't go well. They didn't trust the outsider. Or I've learned that if you're from the town I'm in, if you don't have the right last name, they never like you anyway.
Oh, for sure. We call them compadres. If you're not in the compadre circle, it ain't going to happen, especially down in South Texas, especially down, I'm sure you're familiar with that term. What about the sense of humor? How much of it is you and how much of it is defense mechanism?
Man, I don't know, because it's been me and a defense mechanism for a long time, and it's a damn good one. It's a damn good one. Boy, you are Barbara Walters in my ass now. The one thing about me, and I'd imagine is frustrating to people, is if I feel like you are maliciously giving me shit, I'm going to embrace that. And I'm going to use it against you, and it's going to happen immediately. I'm not going to get off into stories and stuff, but there's a reason that all of my friends call me Worm, and we enter as Team Worm. One guy decided to talk some shit and be like, "Oh, that dude ain't nothing but a worm." And about 2 weeks later, we entered as Team Worm and kicked the shit out of him in the tournament, and it really stuck.
I didn't even know that story. That's pretty damn good. So what else have you committed to and ended up, probably spending a little too much money on things you didn't use?
Oh boy, I mean, where do we start, John? Geez, have you never seen my computer room? All those videos and stuff I do, I could do it with $200 worth of stuff.
Oh, I've seen it.
Probably not 30 grand worth of stuff. Cage shoots a Satori over and under, but I'd imagine he could probably do that a little cheaper.
Cage baseball equipment.
Yeah, he at 11 years old, his pitching glove was an A2000, and he's got a heart of the hide first baseman. My thing is, though, if you're gonna do it right. Buy once, cry once, right? But somebody, there was somebody getting a tattoo from Mike Ashworth the other day, which Mike, we spend so much time together with you and everything that he knows me better than anybody. And Mike said, I can't remember who it was. They looked at him. They said, "Man, have you ever noticed that Caleb can get really hyper fixated on something?"
No kidding.
And Mike said he just stopped tattooing and looked up at him and goes, "I've never met anybody worse." I don't even know if I like fishing. I don't even know if I like fishing, John. It just might be that I'm so focused on I got to be good at this that I stick with it.
I'm not even sure I like it. Okay, so let's go there, because of there's other things that you've done. But influences on fishing. You mentioned one. I know Scott has been a big influence, and I mean you're great at what you do. I've fished with you. I've seen with you in the tournaments, etc. You are great at this. Maybe it's hyperfixation that did it, but for whatever reason, maybe you don't even like it, but you're really good at this. What are the steps, and who are the people?
Man, like I said, Donnie was my base foundation. If I sat here and listed out everybody that had some influence across the way, this would be a 2-hour ordeal. Scott's I think he's been helpful to me. Maybe. I never know when he's talking trash and when he's trying to be helpful. Camille's been great, but all she's done is keep me from getting canceled in the fishing industry.
Yeah.
But man, I pick up something from everybody. Dean, Wayne Davis. It's pretty cool that you can get a call from those guys and say, "Hey, let's fish. Let's do something together." I fortunately, and again, credit to you, because we were just a bunch of dumbass fishing guys until you figured out how to convince other people they should listen to our crap.
Yeah, man.
But the net that has come through all of that, a dude named Gary Whittu, he's another low key guy, but before I had a nice boat and everything, he had picked me up And believe it or not, he picked me up at 4:45 every morning, and I'd bitch all the way to the coast at Fish like to eat lunch too. But he was my ride. Man, there's been so stinking many. And the thing of it is, it doesn't even have to be great fishermen that influence what you do and how you do it. Uh, you got, and I wouldn't even say that, and just sheer honesty, I wouldn't say that, at least tournament wise, my fishing skills aren't any better than those other guys out there. Those guys in the Excalibur, they're all top tier cats. It all comes down to, and maybe it has something about being a quarterback all those years and roping and all that. But I have lived an entire life of split second decisions. And the decision making is the thing that set us apart and kept us successful. Any of those guys can go catch fish. It was learning how to make those decisions, and that's where I would lean into, people like Scott and them that I've learned environmental observations and observations of how fish are acting. Robert Rathkamp, he's another guy that this generation probably hasn't really heard of, and he's only probably a couple of years older than me. But Robert was the king of redfish tournaments for years and years. And when I first got into tournament fishing, I fished the Rudy's Pros and that kind of stuff with Rathkamp. And Rathkamp taught me a whole heck of a lot. So I definitely have to put his name in there. But if you're listening to this, you didn't get your name put in here. It's not because I don't value you. I'll say it a million times. Nobody learned how to do this on their own. There's not a guy out there. If he says that, he's lying to you.
No way. A couple more things here before we let you go. This hair on fire, 4 inches of water, going and blowing and going. Is that just who you are from everything we just heard about, from the rodeo to the athletics and everything else, or what is the genesis there?
I'm gonna say it would have to be a pairing of Robert Jones and Taylor Roth driving their baby cat like absolute maniacs, and my willingness to win something. That I don't want to get too far off brand here, but the real day-to-day, Caleb, we're about to jump in my boat and go fish right now. I'll run 36 miles an hour tops wherever we're going. But on game day, that's whenever you hear the stories and see the videos of 75 miles an hour across flats and cutting, shooting gaps and all that kind of stuff. It's a intense desire to be competitive, mixed with the guys that and I got to give Robert and Taylor a lot of credit, and Justin Lowry for really giving me a foundation of my red fishing life, my trout life are two completely separate things. Those guys, they did a lot to teach me a lot of just the way things worked out here, and watching what they did and the benefits of running across that super sketchy place to get to that deep spot in the back. It's not that I'm not driving fast for giggles. I'm driving fast. That's what it takes to stay on top, to get across to that deep spot back there.
All right. Last thing here. You talk about commitment and going all in. Your latest endeavor, Angler U. That's something that I know is near and dear to you, and that's not going to be a coyote hunt. I mean, that's going to be something that's going to stick with you. What happened there in terms of getting that started?
Well, so Angler U it's 6 months to the public, but it's 2 years in the making. And it's definitely not a flash in the pan. The enrollment is going fantastically well right now. We have a heck of a roster of subscribers, as well as the roster of guides, and we can get back to who's in it. But I always had this idea to do the thing I was looking at, because YouTube kind of cut the legs out from under a lot of us creators, and that's what I was using previously.
TV and all that.
Yeah, and so I had this idea to do a weekly webinar and charge like $20 a month, and you're in, and you get direct access to the guides and everything. And I'd had this thing, and I was in Colorado driving up to Mount Crested Butte, and I get a phone call from Larry Higgins, and Larry says, "Hey, I've got this idea, and I want to see if you're interested." And we ended up figuring out that we both were, and that's when we got Wayne Davis, Scott Knoll, Mickey Eastman, James Plog. Well, let's go. The base creators are Wayne Davis, Scott Knoll, Dean Thomas, Pat Gardner, myself. I know I leave people out every stinking time. James Plog. But either way, we've got. Well, so but our base guys that we've been since day one. Now we're bringing in people like Mickey Eastman, Mickey and Plog are doing webinars with us. I've got Charlie Paradowski's going to start coming on. C.A. Richardson from Florida, he's got a flats class, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. And it's just an ultimate. It is an honor for people that have the pedigrees they have that are buying in on what Angler U is. We're not selling spots. We're teaching you how to find your own. We've got a big community. We've got the webinars. We've got the videos. Big discount code for a lot of people go into FTU Wranglers Anonymous one time and pay for their whole year. And so it's not a flash in the pan. At some point, I fully think that that's going to be something that helps Scott retire and Dean retire to where they don't have to guide as much. They can do everything, but the momentum is absolutely fantastic.
How am I going to retire?
Well, John, I'm feeling like this. 30 minutes and 49 seconds may go viral, bro.
Okay,
that's what it's going to do.
Yeah, and I went long, so we are going to cut it there. But maybe we'll have to revisit this and dig in on some more of this. But no, man, I think the world of you. This has been in the back of my mind. Let's sort of bios on all three of our guys and people. I've told you guys this multiple times. With this podcast, I want it truly water raising all boats. And that's why, Angler U is just intertwined. It's not people might say, oh, is that competition? Not for me. We do our thing and we have our conversations and all that. But no, I want everybody to get theirs, as we do this.
Well, once a season, I'll say it. The rest of the other 11 months of the year, I like to give you a hard time. But once a year, I'll say it. We couldn't have done any of this without you. So it's that simple.
I definitely appreciate that. And of course, same goes back to
He's choking up. He's choking up. I heard you choke up a little bit.
I think I was clearing my throat, but that's okay. I'll choke up if you want me to. All right, man. That is Captain Caleb McCumber. We'll have to revisit this. Maybe next year we'll dig in a little more, or at some point over the course of the season. Coming up next is the Captain Scott Null. How did he get to where he is and who he is? That's next.